Good morning, students. This is Mrs. Freiberg, and I wanted to clear up any questions you guys had on lesson 10, which is all about the cell analogy, and you had an assignment with that lesson. And so we're going to go through. I'm going to skip right to the procedure. I want to make sure that when you guys go through this, you're going through the cell. You read through about the cell analogy. You talk about the topic review at the laboratory. But for sake of time, I'm going to jump to the procedure because this is where you need to go if you ever have questions. Now, I want to make sure that when you go through your lessons that you're completing all the activities. I'm not sure if you have done that, and make sure you're listening to things like the little videos within the lessons, because this is going to tell you why we're doing the analogy of the plant cell. So in this example, they used them and they pictured them as jungle animals. They said the nucleus was the lion. It was an analogy of plant animals or plant cells as animals in a jungle. So they said the nucleus was a lion, the king of the jungle. The chloroplasts were like the mangrove trees. The large central vacuole was like their Amazon River. The lyosomes was like the hyena, basically the scavengers that eat everything. So they used an analogy for that. So if we go to the next page, it's using another analogy to a city. So we have to choose and move these things around. So if I were to look at this and I would say, okay, is it the nucleus, the cell membrane, or a large central vacuole that is like a reservoir? Because right over here, these are the parts of the cell, these are the parts of the city that we're making the analogy to. A large central vacuole will be like the reservoir in a city. The power company, well, I know mitochondria converts energy into power, so that's like the power company of the cell. The cell membrane is basically a border, it's a boundary, so that would be like the town limits of the cell. And then we only have one left, so the nucleus would be like the mayor of the cell. So that's another analogy that you can make. Now, we're on page 2 of 3. We have to click forward again. And it tells us we have to create our own analogy. So right here, whenever you get to these steps, this is going to be your directions on what you need to do in order to finish your assignment, okay? Because when we get to the assignment, and I'll show you the assignment, it's not very clear. It doesn't say right on the worksheet page. You have to come here, okay? So it says 1 with a number 1. It's really big. You have to click reveal. We have to pick a type of cell. Either we're going to use a prokaryote cell, a eukaryotic plant cell, a eukaryotic animal cell. You choose one of those 3. We're going to go to number 2. It tells us we have to think of an analogy where all the organelles have a particular part in a situation or location. So just like they used the analogy of the jungle, the jungle analogy and all the different parts of the jungle, or the city, you have to think of something like that. So you can use the city example, you can use the jungle example, you can come up with your own. So something that you can think of where there's different parts of that area, like the city or the jungle, that you can come up with that we can incorporate into our cell analogy activity. Step number 3 is when we complete that 4-column chart. So column 1 is going to be your cell organelle name. So, and I have a copy of it down here. Wait a minute. I'll show you a copy of that in a minute. Okay, column 1 is going to be your cell organelle name. Column 2 is the organelle function or characteristics. So we're going to, column 1 and column 2 are just going to be talking about the cell. It's the cell organelle name, whether it's the nucleus, the mitochondria, the cell membrane, whatever it might be, and their function, which you should already have in your notes, so it's what we've already been completing with. What are we going to compare it to? So that comes back to your analogy. Which analogy are you going to use? Are you going to use the city? Are you going to use the jungle? You're going to come up with something of your own. And what are we comparing it to? Are we comparing it to a lion? Are we comparing it to the mayor of a town? What are we comparing it to? And the task or characteristic you're using it for comparison. Well, if we're comparing it to the mayor of the town, why are we comparing it to the mayor of the town? Is the mayor in charge? Why are we comparing it to the lion in the jungle? Is it because the lion is the king of the jungle? He's always in charge of the jungle? That's what I'm asking you to do. And then question number 4, or step number 4, it says, once we've completed that chart, so once you've gotten past that part and you've completed your chart, you need to write a story. It doesn't have to be long. There's no limitations on it of how long it needs to be. Write a story that completes the analogy, so the analogy that you created based on whether we use the jungle, whether we use the city. You create a story based on your analogy that you chose with your parts of the cell. So you could say, my mayor is like the nucleus of the town because the mayor is in charge of everything that goes on and gives directions for everybody who works within the city. And then you keep going on. So when I look at the chart, I'm going to show you the assignment here. This is your vocabulary. So hopefully you actually do the vocabulary as well, so you understand your vocabulary words, because it's very difficult to understand that if we understand what we need to do if we don't understand the vocabulary. But when I look at the assignment, I'm going to show you the assignment here. It's right down here. I'll open it up. Enable editing. So this is where, if you just went to the assignment sheet, it would be very difficult to see what you need to do. You need to make sure you go back and read when it says numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Those are your directions on what you need to do to complete the assignment. So in this column will be the name of the organelle, function of, the organelle, your analogy of what you're comparing it to, and what that analogy does. Sorry. So first column, here write your name of your organelle, function of your organelle, so whether you have your nucleus and then the function of the nucleus, your analogy of what you're comparing it to. Again, you have to decide what you're going to compare it to, and then what does, so if you say this is your nucleus, the nucleus is the director of the cell. It gives directions for all the organelles and what they need to do within the cell. You make the analogy to the mayor of the town. Why are you making the analogy to the mayor of the town? What does the mayor do within the town that connects it to why you're comparing it to your nucleus? So once you get that chart filled out, then down here you write your story. So again, it's not limited. I don't tell you how long it has to be. You could have one paragraph. I'm okay with one paragraph as long as you get it written. So you would write something like, we can start with the nucleus. If I can type. It's like the mayor of every town. Okay, so this would be one example of how I would start my story. I would say the nucleus of the cell is like the mayor of the town. The mayor is in charge of the town just like the nucleus is in charge of the cell and gives directions to all that work under it. Okay, so that would be the beginning of my story. It's not done because I haven't listed all the other parts of the cell, but that is what you need to do. So hopefully that clarifies things up a little bit. And if anyone else has any questions, please let me know. I look forward to working with you, and have a great day.